Welcome to the iPad Podcast, a weekly podcast from Mac's Future.
Okay, welcome to the iPad Podcast. This is Lex. This is episode 110. We've got a lot to talk about. This is a chit-chat-free podcast all about the iPad, iPad news, iPad devices, all sorts of things iPad. And you can go to iTunes and give it a positive review, and that's how you can help it out. This is generally commercial-free. The video version on YouTube does have commercials, but the audio version does not. So let's get to it, the iPad Podcast. Okay, so we're right around the corner from, September 12th or so. It's September 2nd. And one of the things that's hotly anticipated is the launch of something that's being called the iPad mini. There's been all sorts of rumors from very reputable sites like the Wall Street Journal, like Bloomberg, that says that Apple's coming out with a much smaller tablet that's going to be maybe a little under 8 inches in diagonal, and some people are dubbing it the iPad mini. And, it would compete in the same market with like the Google Nexus 7 and the Kindle Fire, these smaller tablets. And what's interesting is, remember, Steve Jobs a number of years ago, before he died, poo-pooed that any tablet that was like 7 inches would be any good. But a lot of people are convinced that it's going to come out, and there's been like so many rumors that it's in the works that everybody thinks it's definitely going to happen. Now, obviously, the iPhone 5 is going to launch, according to other rumors, on September 12th. So the question is, will the iPad mini come out? Well, a lot of people think it's coming out and that it's going to sell like hotcakes. And here, CNBC, if you look at the website, on their website, they have a story entitled, iPad mini may sell like hotcakes compared to regular tablets, pros. In other words, that the pros are saying this. And it says that it would be highly profitable for Apple if it comes to market, and would likely outsell its full-size predecessor 2-to-1, according to some guy named Patrick Moorhead of More Insights and Strategy. So I don't know who these pundits are that it's relying on. Moorhead said, quote, if they would price it at $299, they would kill most of the 7-inch competitors, Moorhead said. Quote, Apple's iPad would probably be about an 8-inch tablet, but it's going to catch on very quickly, if nothing else, because it says Apple, and it's priced at $299. The article points out the iPad currently in the most recent quarter sold 17 million iPads in the third quarter alone. And Moorhead said, quote, Apple wants to dominate all form factors for this kind of device. If you look at overall market share, they have 90% of tablet share today, but they don't want to give an inch or even leave an opening for a competitor, not an OS or an ecosystem, Moorhead said. So, I kind of agree with this. I think if it comes out, it's going to be a blockbuster. CNBC quotes another analyst named Brian White at Topeka Capital Markets who said he doesn't think it's necessarily competition that is driving Apple to make a smaller iPad. White says it's a chance for the company to cash in on a growing market. He said, quote, I think they see a big opportunity they can tap into that they can't with the full-size tablet, White said. Apparently this guy White has a 12-month price target for Apple shares at $1,111. And it says that his firm has not factored in a mini iPad into the outlook for Apple. So I kind of agree. I do think it's going to be a huge home run. Just through my own personal experience, I think there is a place for a 7 or 8-inch iPad. I think I've been saying this for a really long time, since the original iPad came out. And to me, the main reason is that the current iPad, which is great, is just too heavy, and it's mainly too heavy, if not too thick, for some things. And what are those things? Well, I've just noticed, for example, I trade off between my iPhone and my iPad, and there are a lot of times that I will read stuff on the iPad because it's just easier to hold. For example, I have a Google Plus account, and sometimes, or a Twitter account, and sometimes it's just easier to read it on the iPhone and then the iPad because you have to hold the iPad with two hands. You really can't hold it comfortably with one hand. If you hold it with one hand for a while, it puts a big strain on your thumb. Try just holding, like, the iPad, particularly the iPad.3, which is heavier than the iPad 2, in one hand, and it's kind of heavy. And it's that weight, I think, which is significant. And frankly, I'll be honest with you. When the third generation iPad came out, I was kind of thrilled that it had a Retina display, but I really didn't like the fact that it got heavier than the second generation iPad. It's actually, for me, took a step back in that respect. And a Retina screen is great and all, but the weight is really significant because, like, if you're lying back in bed and want to read, it's kind of hard to hold it with two hands. Also, if you're standing in line anywhere or standing anywhere and want to read, holding a heavy iPad with two hands is kind of a pain. And in New York City, a lot of people read on the subways. And if you're standing, you really can't hold the iPad because most people have to hold on to something while they're standing on the subway in New York. And so I see a lot of people instead reading Kindles with one hand when they're standing on the subway. So I think just because it's going to be significantly lighter than the iPad, but bigger than the iPod Touch, I think the 8-inch iPad is going to have a huge, huge market. Now, that's, to me, the most important factor. Now, price is also going to be a big deal because the iPad mini is going to clearly be priced cheaper than the current iPad, which starts at $500 for a Wi-Fi version. And I've talked about this before, about the difficulty Apple's going to have in terms of pricing a mini iPad, because the iPod Touch currently starts at $200. And so the iPod Touch, in a way, is like a mini iPad. It's just a 3.5-inch diagonal device. So what are they going to do? Like, where are they going to price the iPad mini? And remember, like, the Nexus 7 costs $200, Wi-Fi only version, and so does the Kindle Fire. I don't think Apple needs to match Google or Amazon to be competitive with that device, because I think people would be willing to pay a little bit of a premium to have an iPad mini. I think in its most aggressive pricing, a Wi-Fi only version of the iPad mini is going to be $299. But in a more aggressive pricing, to be more competitive, I think Apple's going to price a Wi-Fi only iPad mini with 16, let's say with 8 gigabytes of storage, with Wi-Fi only at $249. Then I bet you the iPod Touch entry level 8 gigabytes falls in price to $175. And then you could have also, what we haven't seen is a Nexus with 3G in it. I bet you that you're going to have a Nexus an iPad Touch, an iPad mini with 3G or LTE connectivity, and for, let's say, another $50 or another $80. So maybe like $340 for the LTE version of it. And, still several $100s less than a full-on iPad. So I do think you're going to see it come out, and I think it's going to sell crazy amounts, because a lot of people who are on the fence, and also people who have an iPad, are going to get an iPad mini just to have both. So, it's very exciting. I think it's definitely going to happen, and I think these analysts on CNBC's website are correct. Now, one concern some investors in Apple may have, or some analysts may have, are stories out that one of Apple's suppliers for the iPhone or the iPad may be having difficulty supplying a crucial part, the display or monitor. And 9to5Mac has a story out entitled, "As Sharp Rumored to Fall Behind on New iPhone Displays, LG and AU Optics Named as iPad Mini Display Makers." So I guess, one concern is Sharp also supplying the iPad Mini, and is it going to be able to keep up with supply? or demand. Now, it says here, Reuters had cited an unidentified source that reported that Sharp is floundering due to high costs eating into its iPhone screen margins. And the struggle is apparently raising questions about whether Apple will need to offer, quote, financial incentives, end quote, to encourage speedier production. So this has to do with display production by Sharp, which is one of Apple's suppliers. It says here, the source who is familiar with Sharp's production operations did not give an indication of how far behind the output had fallen. The source spoke on condition that he not be identified because of the sensitive nature of the disclosure. And Sharp president said on August 2nd that his company would begin mass production and shipments from its Kamiyama LCD plant in central Japan this month. And that facility is widely known to make screens for Apple. But Sharp did not acknowledge that Apple is a customer. So it goes on to say here, Sharp's delays comes as it deals with, quote, cash crunch and approaching debt repayment deadlines, the Wall Street Journal reported the other day. And the company holds $15 billion in interest-bearing debt. So it's, Apple apparently, though, has other suppliers. And apparently, this article indicates that Apple has, AU Optonics and LG as suppliers for like an iPad mini. So hopefully, they're going to be able to crank out a lot of these because I think there's going to be huge demand. Now, what exactly are going to be the specs of the iPad mini? Now, there's one person who's made a really good guess is Marco Arment of the Marco.org blog, but more importantly, he has his own podcast on a 5x5 network called Build and Analyze, and more importantly, he is the owner and developer and creator of Instapaper, and he had a blog post out on August 30th entitled Predicting the iPad Mini Internals. Now, because he runs Instapaper, he gets to see some data as to what devices are connecting, and he first said that he saw two curious entries into the Instapaper device stats on August 30th, one from something called iPad 2,5 and one called iPad 2,6. Now, up till now, Apple hasn't had any devices that it labels with these model numbers. And he basically says these device models could be faked by a jailbreaker. And currently, iPad 2.1 through iPad 2.3 are the iPad 2's original Wi-Fi, GSM, and CDMA models. And iPad 2.4 is currently the 32 nm die shrink update to the iPad 2 that came out when the iPad 3 was released. So he's speculating that iPad 2.5 and iPad 2.6 could be GSM and CDMA versions of the die shrunk iPad 2. It could be the iPad mini, one with Wi-Fi and one with, a cell phone chip in it. So now, I think I pointed out, and some other people pointed out, what if they're just the iPad 2 with the new dock connectors? Because Apple has sort of indicated that when the new dock connectors come out, all the devices are going to have them. So maybe it's like going to be viewed as like a newer model, slightly new model of the regular iPad 2 to have a new dock connector. He acknowledges that, but doesn't think it's that. But what's interesting in terms of what's in it, he thinks that Apple's going to take already some of the components that exist in the current iPad with the 32 millimeter, I guess, or nanometer processor of the iPad 2, and that they're going to put it in the iPad mini. So he says, if this is so, this suggests that the iPad mini is effectively an iPad 2, and that it's going to have an A5 processor with a 512 megabytes of RAM and enough GPU to drive a display, but not a Retina display. So basically, it's going to be as powerful, he thinks, as the iPad 2 and not have a Retina display. And frankly, for that size, you probably don't need a Retina display. But, I mean, I think this is very plausible. Apple, if you look at the iPod Touch, Apple doesn't put its best processor into the iPod Touch. It puts like an older generation processor into the iPod Touch. And it doesn't give like the best camera for the iPod Touch. So I bet you the iPad mini doesn't have like the best processor or a Retina display or the best camera. It's going to have cheaper cameras, cheaper display, cheaper processor, because the key is it's going to be like an entry-level iPad, right? It's going to be the cheap $250 or $300 iPad. And, I think Marco pretty much hit it on the head. Now, one company that Apple is going to be really competing with head-to-head with the smaller iPad is going to be, obviously, Amazon, which already has the Kindle Fire, which came out earlier this year, as well as Google, which has the Nexus 7. And there had been some speculation that Amazon, which is expected to update the Kindle Fire this coming week, would also launch a 10-inch iPad competitor, a Kindle Fire that has 10 inches. But now word comes via CNET and other sites that the Kindle Fire won't go big to take on iPad. It says here, Amazon next week will announce two 7-inch Kindle Fire models, one with new hardware and the other an updated version of the original. And it says that is counter to rumors it would launch a larger version. And this is according to CNET. It says here, Amazon plans to double down on the 7-inch tablet mark with two new Kindle Fire models. Despite speculation that Amazon was preparing a large 8.9 or 10-inch version, the company will only unveil a new 7-inch Kindle Fire and a slightly revamped version of the original tablet, an event scheduled for next week, according to persons who have seen the devices. So that's kind of interesting. It says here, there's some speculation whether they're going to drop the price of the entry-level Kindle Fire. But I think it makes sense that Amazon doesn't take on head-to-head Apple with a 10-inch iPad. I think they know it would be hard for them to do that, and they're already either breaking even or losing money with the Kindle Fire. And if they go with a 10-inch, it's going to be harder for them to be competitive. So I'm not surprised. And this is going to help Apple in the enterprise, because the enterprise obviously is going to want the bigger iPad, not the 7-inch one. And so Apple really doesn't have any major competitors in the space of the 10-inch device. And, we'll have to see. I mean, I think it's funny. The Nexus 7 came out this summer. The Kindle Fire is going to be updated in next week. And then within a couple of weeks or 2 weeks, we're going to hear about the iPad mini. So it's going to be a big year for tablets, it looks like. Now, Apple is getting some help in its lawsuit against the Justice Department regarding ebook pricing and its deal with the publishers. You may recall that the Justice Department sued Apple and various publishers regarding iBooks on the iPad, claiming that Apple has arranged a pricing, agency pricing, where the publishers set a price that is anti-competitive. And as I've pointed out and other people have pointed out, well, wait a second, there was no real competition in ebooks until Apple really started getting involved. Amazon dominated ebooks and still does, and has been pricing ebooks sometimes at what it pays wholesale to get them. Anyways, that lawsuit's very intense here in New York, and some third parties have submitted briefs in the case. Now, Apple is protesting the settlement that the Justice Department reached with certain publishers that decided to settle, because the settlement would cause those publishers to break the agreement they have with Apple and the agency pricing. And Apple basically said to the court, look, we're still fighting those charges. It's unfair for the settlement to affect our contract with these publishers, because without having a litigation. And now some third-party publishers and a licensing expert are submitted papers which the judge is accepting. Now it says here in MaCNN.com that U.S. District Court Judge Denise Cote of the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York, presiding over the Apple ebook pricing settlement case, has granted amici curiae, or friends of the court status, to two opposing parties, writer advocacy organization, the Authors Guild, which is a very prominent writers association, and licensing expert Bob Cohen, have been given permission to file an amicus brief with the court decrying the proposed settlement and pointing out why they see flaws in the Department of Justice's argument. It goes on to say both the Authors Guild and Cohen argue that the United States Department of Justice has too narrow a definition of the ebook market, and the proposed settlement would damage the existing book market and destroy competition. Cohen argued in his 55-page submission that the Department of Justice's own investigation demonstrated that Amazon engaged in predatory pricing and has demanded that it turn over all documents relating to the investigation. And what's interesting is Judge Cote has accepted all of the brief that the Authors Guild submitted from August 15, but asked that Cohen cut down his 55-page brief to 5 pages by September 4th. And both Cohen and the Authors Guild have asked for a hearing, and DOJ opposes the request and is basically ignoring the filings. And apparently, according to this article at MaCNN.com, Cohen was the founder of eMusic and is currently chairman of Royalty Share Inc., a provider of revenue and royalty solutions to the record companies, music publishers, and book publishers. And he also served as vice chairman of the board at Borland Software. So it's going to be interesting to see what the judge does, and it could impact you as an iPad user, because if the DOJ allows these contracts to be destroyed, then the publishers can't set their own price. Rather, they would set a wholesale price for Apple to buy. And maybe in the short run, it might lower your costs of books, but it also could lead to higher costs of books. So it's unclear, but it's a very interesting lawsuit. We'll see how well Apple does in that lawsuit. Now, one of the things that you might want to do in anticipation of the iPad mini is sell your iPad or one of your iPads. Like, I have two iPads, an iPad 3rd generation and an iPad 2nd generation, and I'm actually considering maybe selling my 2nd generation iPad and getting an iPad mini. Because otherwise, if I get the iPad mini, I'm going to have 3 iPads. And one thing that's interesting is, a lot of people get Apple Care Plus, and for the 3rd generation iPad, you can get Apple Care Plus, and also for the regular 2nd generation iPad, you can get it. And one of the things you should know is that if you sell your iPad or iPhone or any iDevice, you can transfer your Apple Care price to the purchaser. And on eBay, that's something that you should advertise, because I think if someone buys your device and it's subject to Apple Care Plus or even Apple Care, it's a good inducement to buying it and adds value to your sale. And since you can't transfer the Apple Care to your other iDevice, you might as well sell your device with that. And here's the interesting thing. It says under Clause 10, under the legal document for Apple Care, it says, subject to the restrictions set forth below, you may make a one-time permanent transfer of all your rights under the plan to another party, provided that the transfer includes the original proof of purchase, the plan's confirmation, and all of the plan's printed material and these terms and conditions. And B, you notify Apple of the transfer by sending a fax or email notice of transfer to Apple, and it gives the address. And C, the party receiving the plan accepts the terms and conditions of the plan. So think about it. If you're selling your iDevice and you have Apple Care, you might want to advertise that you can transfer the Apple Care that you have on it with the device. Well, the iPad continues to grow as an enterprise device. MaCNN had an article this week entitled Delta to deploy 4,500 iPads at United States airports, restaurants. So this is pretty cool, and I've seen this. I remember going through, I think it was an airport in Los Angeles, and in one of the terminals at the gates, there were like hundreds and hundreds of iPads. And it says here Delta Airlines is deploying 250 iPads at restaurants in the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport, according to an announcement, and that travelers can find the hardware at Concourse G's Minibar, Mimosa, and Shoyu. And apparently Delta has already done this at LaGuardia Airport, and it's part of a plan where Delta will have something like 4,500 iPads at 3 airport hubs within the next year. So you figure this costs, let's see, 4,500 times 100 would be 4,500,000. You figure they're at least $500 each. So we're looking at something like $20 million worth of iPads that Delta bought. And it says here that they're being rolled out in partnership with something called OTG, which is a company specializing in airport food and beverages. And it says that in the restaurants, the iPads are mainly meant for ordering meals, which are promised fresh and served within 15 minutes. So it looks like the iPad is sort of cutting out on waiters. And it allows browsers and diners to check Twitter, Facebook, and email. And the tablets are equipped to show flight status, watch news, video, and play games. And apparently personal data is removed after the home button is pressed or the iPad has been left alone for 2 minutes. So it's not a full-fledged operating iPad, which I think is smart. It's got limited functions, which travelers would need. So, I guess people aren't going to be able to like browse through porn or anything crazy like that. So this is kind of cool. I think we're going to see this more and more. And the thing is, the more it becomes sort of like a standard device that people are used to, and let's say when they're going to the terminal and using it at a restaurant, the more Apple is going to be able to sell these iPads because if you're an enterprise and you have customers and you know that a lot of the world knows how to use the iPad, why would you get a competing tablet that has a different interface? Because you want to make it as easy as possible. Now, an article that's really showing everybody how accessible the iPad is one that appeared on Mashable on August 31st by Christine Erickson. She writes, she has an article entitled, "This 84-year-old just put you to shame with her first iPad self-portrait." And there's a picture of an old lady doing a self-portrait on the iPad. And it basically says that the woman is 84 and has never had a tablet or wanted art. Her grandson, a Reddit user named Oxide42, claims to have purchased the iPad for her. And the app Art Rage was installed. And apparently this Reddit user allowed his grandmother to use it for 30 minutes. And she came back and she had this great self-portrait, and the image was posted to Reddit and quickly shot to the front page. So, who knows if this is just a tall tale or if this grandmother actually did it. But the point is, if it's true, it just shows you how easy and accessible the iPad is. Doctors are clearly embracing the iPad, and in a Washington Post, there was a very catchy article entitled, "Not Without My iPad, Young Tech-Savvy Docs Want a Real Life But Don't Call Them Slackers." Now, the article is mainly about how doctors today, don't want to just spend their entire life working, round the clock, but they want to have a life. But what's interesting in the article, and I guess they put this iPad hook in it, is that a lot of the newer doctors are tech savvy and walk around with the iPad. So here's what it says. Okay, so it says here, take a look at a doctor named Amal Nassari and Lino Wen, who are part of the new breed. The article says, Nassari, 32, is a medical resident at the University of Oklahoma in Tulsa. He likes the idea of working in a large health plan group where doctors, specialists, and other medical staff work as teams with easy access to patients' electronic medical records. That kind of setup is more likely to be wired than smaller practices, and Nassari can't imagine working without his iPad. And he's quoted as saying, the older guys carry around little pharmaceutical books, end quote, when going room to room visiting hospitalized patients. Nassari said he thinks that's less efficient than being able to quickly view patients' electronic charts and online drug information. So, I do think we're going to see more and more doctors using tablet devices. And frankly, the iPad mini, when it comes out, it's going to be even easier for doctors to get the data, because I think carrying around an iPad could be a little heavy for a doctor, but an iPad mini would be just the perfect fit. In fact, it appears that the iPad as well as the iPhone are having an impact on healthcare. Cult of Mac had a story on August 31st entitled New Federal Rules Show the Impact of the iPhone and iPad on Healthcare by Ryan Foss. And it goes on here to say that the success of devices like the iPhone and iPad in healthcare has become so pronounced that the Department of Health and Human Services has begun to single out the use of mobile devices as part of the meaningful use requirements for electronic health records (EHR) systems. In addition to identifying mobile device use, the agency has also taken steps towards explicitly regulating mobile device security needs in the health industry. And it says here, this week, the federal agency released the official set of Stage 2 meaningful use requirements, which will go into effect in 2014. It says a large portion of the Stage 2 requirements focus on mandating more frequent use of EHRs and electronic health information exchange systems. It says, for example, doctors will be expected to use digital systems to order lab work and diagnostic imaging for at least 30% of their patients. And it goes on to say other rules stipulate that some of the required use of digital systems can be met using mobile devices, requiring providers to use computerized physician order entry, which specifically can include a mobile device for 60% of patients and 30% of laboratory. So the point is that it looks like those who regulate the medical industry clearly see the use of devices like the iPhone and iPad in the delivery of medicine and are sort of requiring there to be, as part of the electronic record keeping, the use of this stuff phased in and requiring doctors to have a number of, patients and lab stuff using this stuff. So I think we're going to just see more of this. And frankly, it's such a mess for doctors right now with records. I think, these devices are being embraced by doctors regardless of any mandate. Okay, so if you have some dough, there's a new way to charge your iPad. There's a company called Launchport, and it announced a new product on, August 29th called the AP.3 Sleeve. And it's basically allows sort of inductive charging magnetically. And basically, it's a productive case that contours to fit the new iPad or iPad 2. It says you can effortlessly mount and charge your iPad on a wall using a wall station or on a tabletop with the base station at the perfect angle for typing and tapping, sold separately. Choose between soft touch black or white gloss finishes. Use your iPad in more places. Keep it fully charged. So basically, the sleeve you put on your iPad, and then it can just sort of, be magnetically cling to something or rest on something, and it's just going to charge. You don't have to plug things in. Now, it does have a mini USB port, which if you wanted to use an Apple Power adapter or sync it with a PC or Mac. And it also has something known as waveguide, which acoustically concentrates and directs the iPad speaker audio to the front of your iPad. And it says here the charging time for the iPad is 4 hours, average from 0 to 100%, and apparently there's a magnetic ring which consists of 8 and 42 shielded magnets. Let's see the cost of this. The sleeve itself is not too expensive. It's $149. The launch port wall station, which has an inductive charger, allows for 360-degree rotation and costs $199. And the base station, which also allows for 360-degree rotation and can be tabletop mounted, and is at an ideal angle, that costs $200. So basically, costs like $350 if you want the sleeve plus one of the chargers. So they have a number of iPad-related devices there. They also have something that would securely mount your iPad in a wall, and it charges the iPad, and that costs $400. That's called the CMIW2000. So this could be, if you're in the enterprise, this might be particularly an attractive way to charge your iPad and also display it. So the website's called launchport.com, and I'll have a link to it in the show notes. Now, football season's upon us, and you probably want to watch football on your iPad. If you're into college football, you might want to get something called the Pac-12 iPad app. 9 to 5 Mac reported on this. That's where I saw it. And basically, it streams live broadcasts of college football and other sports to your iPad. It says here, the United States College Athletic Conference, formerly known as Pac-10, is announced a new iPad app that allows you to stream college sports directly to your iPad wherever you are. And games that are broadcast on TV will require a cable television login and password, but no login will be required for long-tail events like rowing or USCLA football that do not get TV airtime. And apparently, it says here, all major cable providers are on board except Comcast, which has its own Xfinity iPad app. So depending on where you live and what college football program you watch, you might have to log in through a cable subscription or maybe not log in. But it's a free app. It's called Pac-12 iPad app, and you should probably check it out if you're into college sports. Now, what about football? What about football on the iPad? Now, the big thing is the NFL, and this, I think, started last year, but if you want it, you can get the DirecTV's Sunday Ticket program on the iPad, even if you don't have DirecTV. And it costs $250, and you get basically DirecTV's Sunday Ticket. Now, what you have to do is certify that where you live, you can't get DirecTV. And in a lot of buildings in Manhattan and New York City, and in other parts of the country, you can't get DirecTV. So all you have to do is basically confirm that where you live, you don't get DirecTV, and they'll let you sign up, and it costs $250. Now, if you're a really crazy football watcher, pro football, the $250 isn't that much. But here's the other thing. I've been dreaming, and I may do this, of cutting the cord and just not paying for cable television. And I've been watching less and less cable TV, and frankly, I've been using my iPad and computer more for video content. And the one thing that's been really keeping me on cable television is NFL football. But I think I have a solution that involves this DirecTV app and program and something else that might allow me to see most of the football games that I want to watch. Now, all you have to do is go to iTunes and download the DirecTV Sunday Ticket app, which is free. And basically, then you log in through your Sunday Ticket account, and you can see like all the games. So it's pretty cool. Now, what is this service? You don't get, if you like live in the town where the game is, then you're not going to get it. So basically, you get if you happen to live in an area where you can't get DirecTV services, you'll still be in luck. You can get NFL Sunday Ticket for your computer. That means you can watch every out-of-market game live every Sunday anywhere you have an internet connection. So basically, if you're in New York and the Jets are playing the Giants, that's not going to be on Sunday NFL Ticket. However, you're going to be able to watch the games out of town. So if, like you're like me, if you're following some game out of town, you wouldn't be able to get it on regular TV anyways, unless it was just being picked up by one of the broadcasters. And it also has, cool stuff, the Sunday Ticket, where you can, it's got something called the Red Zone channel, which you can watch the final yards of every scoring drive on one dedicated channel. And you can have live streaming video, enjoy every out-of-market NFL Sunday Ticket game. You can switch from game to game at any time. And you can you can relive the big moments, and you can, instant stats. So I think it's a very cool service. And if you're into football, just get the DirecTV app and, get this Sunday Ticket by paying $250. Now, another way to get football and other content on your iPad, as well as now your computer and the iPhone, is a service called Aereo, AEREO.com. And I talked about them before. And basically what it does is over the internet, through just a web browser, it allows you to receive over-the-air television over-the-air to your iPad through the internet. And it's a great app, and it basically they recently won a court challenge by the major TV providers, saying that it violated copyright, and so now they've rolled out more plans. I've been using it and testing it for free, and right now it only works in New York City. And you have to sort of confirm that you're located there, but it basically gives you whatever programs are broadcast over the air through the internet. So that means the major TV stations like the NBC, ABC, Fox, and CBS, as well as PBS, as well as others come over it. And basically, you can watch it for free for one continuous hour a day, and you don't get any DVR capability. And with a day pass, it's $1 a day, and you get 3 hours of DVR storage, and you can control 2 antennas to record 2 shows at once. And they have a monthly 8, where you're committed for 8 months, no, it's $8 a month, and you get your second month free, and what else? You get 20 hours of DVR, and then if you commit for a year, and then there's for $12 a month, you get 40 hours of DVR storage. And for $80 a year, if you prepay it, they give you 3 extra months for free. Frankly, if you're into this, test it out. I'd go for the $80 a year. It is pretty cheap. It comes to, wow, with the extra 3 months, you're getting 15 months for $80. So that's almost like under $6 a month. And so basically, between this, you're going to get the major, if you're into football, between this and the DirecTV app, you're going to get a lot of football games, because you'll get your in-market games that are on CBS and NBC or Fox. Now, I guess the issue is, how are you going to get the football games that I guess are on Monday, not on ESPN? One TV solution hopefully will be coming to the iPad in the United States. TUAW.com pointed out that the Elgato, which has been making a lot of hardware for the Mac for Macs to get TV, just released something called iTV Mobile for the iPad and iPhone. And I guess this is only working right now in Europe, and it will go on sale in Germany or in England. And it basically showed at Germany's IFA 2012 trade show as a springboard that for this iTV Mobile product. It says it's a dongle that connects to the dock connector and lets users receive DVB.T broadcasts on their iOS devices. And it says due to improved chip technology, the latest version of iTV Mobile is significantly smaller than previous models. And it's going to go on sale for £89.95 through Elgato's online store. And a companion app is going to be available for free. Now, it would be great if we saw this in the United States. Who knows when Elgato is going to make this available in the United States? But that's what we would need is maybe Apple should do this. Apple should just build an over-the-air receptor for the iPad and, for digital TV reception or over the internet. And that would help sell not only iPads, but a lot of Apple TVs. So this is pretty cool, and hopefully Elgato will release this in the United States. One thing that's cool about this Elgato iTV Mobile is that they actually sell it in the Apple online store in the UK. So if you go to the UK Apple store, Apple is actually, Apple does sell some third-party stuff through its store, and apparently they like this Elgato iTV Mobile. And really, I just wish they would somehow get this in the United States. That would really do the trick for me. Okay, so there's a little bit of sad news. If you're an Avid Studio user on the iPad, you're out of luck a little bit. Now, remember, a little while ago, and I think I did a review of this about 6 months ago, Avid came out with its own movie editing program to compete with iMovie on the iPad called Avid Studio, and I did a review of it, and it was, I think, about like $5. And, Avid is getting out of that business. TUAW.com reported on August 31st that a pop-up message advises users that the app won't get any more support, and they're urged to download Pinnacle Studio, a similar high-end editing app owned by Corel. And apparently the changes are a result of Corel buying the consumer line of Avid editing tools from Avid. And I downloaded Pinnacle Studio, and I played around a little bit with it, and it appears to be very similar to the Avid app. Who knows? Maybe they ported over the code to it, and so it's similar. It allows you to create video, audio, use video, audio, and photo, and has transitions and title creations and video compositing, and you can share via YouTube, Facebook, Box, Apple TV, and more. So it's a sad day because it looks like Avid's going to be no longer involved, but it looks like Pinnacle Studio is going to be the replacement, and it's currently free. If you go over to Pinnacle Studio in the App Store, it basically says free for a limited time, so you might want to get it quickly. It might be like a promotion by them. I would get it. It weighs in at 67.1 megabytes, so it takes up a little bit of space. So it was just released. It's version 2.0, released on August 30th. So you might want to check it out. It's called Pinnacle Studio. Now, the toy companies are finding more and more inventive ways to use the iPad, with kids. And I don't know if you recall, back around Christmas time, Mattel, I think, released these little widget cars that you would put on top of the iPad, and they would interact with a virtual game that was based on the Car movie. And now it looks like these they called Aptivity toys. They have a whole lineup of them now. And let's see, they have Hot Wheels, WWE Rumblers, Batman, Fruit Ninja, Cut the Rope, and Activity Monkey. So they have a whole bunch. So let's take Hot Wheels. So Hot Wheels, you have these like little toy Hot Wheels. You can choose from 4 different vehicles, and they each have their own sound. And you basically push them around the surface and interact with a racing, jumping, and shooting challenges that are on the iPad. So let's see what else. They've got something called WWE Rumblers. And here they're like wrestlers, basically, from the WWE. And you can choose 1 to 7 WWE Rumbler figures against 20 in-game superstars. So it's just basically what you're seeing is it's a very clever way. I think kids like this. They interact with these little toys that interact with the iPad screen. You can complete in 2 high-stakes specialty events, tables, ladders, and chairs, and Monkey in the Bank. So basically, that's the wrestling. Then there's Batman, and with Batman, there's 4 action figures that like move around. There's and then it comes with different weapons and gear: Riot Cannon, Batman; EMP Assault, Batman. So each Batman has different gears: Grapnel Attack, Batman, and the Bat. And you can also follow the Dark Knight Rises movie story, and there are 9 different levels of play. What else? Fruit Ninja. Now this is a riff on the game Fruit Ninja, but here you basically have a little ninja guy, and you place the Sensei figure on your tablet screen and challenge a friend to this 2-player version of Fruit Ninja. The player holding the Sensei attacks from the fruit conveyor belt by aiming fruit at his opponent, while the second player uses a finger to slice the fruit flying across the screen. You avoid bombs as you slice, etc. So this is only 1 character, but it's again, the idea is they make money selling these little toys. Then Cut the Rope, which is another app on iOS, and here they give you this adorable Om Gnome figure on your tablet screen to access Candy Feast mode. And it says you can move the Om Gnome around, and it looks like this. If you're listening to the audio version of this, it's like a little greenish round, character that you hold. You can move it around the screen quickly to collect candy and avoid dangerous spiders. Try to catch the magnet, which helps brings the candy toward Om Gnome faster, and earn a blue star. And then what else? Let's see. We have Cut the Rope. Wait, did we do Cut the Rope? No. Activity Monkey. And Activity Monkey, and this is actually not an iPad app, but just some sort of interactive monkey that has like a that you can put like an iPhone or iPod Touch into it. So anyways, Mattel, they're making money. The one thing I would say, though, is I think I got the Cars one, the Disney Cars interactive device. And my one concern is that these things can scratch your iPad Surface if your child presses hard down. Like take the Hot Wheels cars. If you press down, it could maybe scratch your iPad. So I'd be a little careful with them. Just to be clear, the other toys that I was talking about are AppMates. That's what I got at Christmas time, and that's actually made by Disney/Pixar. So I'm not sure if they're the same thing as what Mattel is making, but I think it's a similar concept. So, the Mattel ones I haven't used, and I've just used the app mates made by Disney, but it seems like a similar concept. But I'm not sure, if they would have the same problem with maybe scratching the surface of the iPad. So basically, we're seeing the toy people get into like these games or these devices or these figures that interact with the surface of the iPad. So it's pretty interesting. If you're looking for a better way to prop up your iPad, over at Kickstarter, which is that crowdfunding site, for creating products and having people pay ahead of time for them, there's something that looks kind of interesting called Human Tools Stand. That's Tools, TOOLZ Stand. And they're seeking to raise $80,000, and they've already reached their goal of $80,000 by raising $84,092 from 323 backers with 6 days to go. And it's basically a stand your iPad up at any angle, and it has made out of something they call stunning aluminum Human Tools mobile stand. And let's see. Here's what it says. You deserve a more versatile iPad stand. As an active iPad user, you likely carry your iPad wherever you go and use it in every conceivable fashion. This take the iPad everywhere utility is great, yet it's why today's iPad accessory cases and stands have become a major source of frustration. So basically, they say they've created a stand truly worthy of a new iPad, featuring a minimalist all-aluminum design that offers the most natural and mobile-friendly fit to the iPad. And they have a picture of it, and it looks like this sort of somewhat skeleton aluminum thing that you put on the back of the iPad. And it says that the stand is incredibly versatile in its support of unlimited viewing angles and ability to operate in both landscape and portrait modes. It offers perfect four-corner and rear surface protection while working with the Apple Smart Cover for superior all-around protection. And basically, I do like the fact that it protects the corners, because I do find that it's the corners of the iPad that get damaged more easily. And it looks interesting. It looks kind of, I don't think it looks very attractive, but it does look very functional. It says it's stable across all surfaces. They have it like propped up on a pillow, and it seems to hold up. And it works in both landscape and portrait, and works with the smart covers. And it's super mobile, it says. It's only 0.15 pounds or 2.5 ounces. And it says it's 50% less weight than the smart cover and 90% lighter than any alternative cases. And it's very thin. It says it's only 0.15 centimeters thin at each corner and 0.21 inches thin at the hinge. And it looks interesting as a stand. I mean, it looks like, these sort of brackets that cling to the back. Now, for 25 or more, let's see, how much do you have to pay to get something? It says if you pledge 65 or more, you get one Human Tools mobile stand for iPad 2, and it will normally retail for $90. Let's see. If you pledge, it seems to be for the iPad 2, which is strange, because what about the iPad 3rd generation? Is this just for the 2nd generation? I can't. Oh, I see. It's for both the 3rd generation iPad and the 2nd generation, but there are rewards for iPad 2 pledgers. So check it out. It's called, the 6 more days left. It's called Human Tools Stand on Kickstarter. And with anything on Kickstarter, you're not guaranteed to get something. What if they just can't complete the project and build it well with the money? So it's always a little bit of a gamble when you buy something on Kickstarter. I mean, you're hoping they complete it, but it's not a guarantee. Okay, so that's it for episode 110 of the iPad podcast. This is Lex at MaxFuture.com. Thanks for listening. You can help out this podcast by going to the iTunes store and giving it a positive review, or going to YouTube or to Blib TV and seeing the video version and giving it some positive review there, or check out the MaxFuture.com blog. So thanks for listening, and see you next week.